you never heard of. Hey everybody, welcome to the Common Folk Podcast with Ben, Morgan, and Andy.
All right. What's up?
All right.
There it is.
I'm in a room here full of a bunch of dudes.
There's a
We need
sausage party.
Yeah, some girls in here, but
It's actually a beef party.
There we
get
go.
to that.
Oh.
Nice.
We'll get to that.
That's how you work the segue.
Yep.
Now
Yep.
we're being joined by the guys out of Certified Piedmontese.
Oh, you pronounced it right, too.
okay. I was
Oh,
just gonna
yeah.
say, I don't know. I think I say it wrong every time.
We hear it just about every way, but it's Piedmontese.
Piedmontese.
Yep.
Where does that come from?
Well, it's an Italian breed of cattle, so
Okay.
it's from the Piedmont area of Italy, so everyone's kind of... Our owners are actually named Pied, their last name, and everyone thought that they actually named the breed of cattle after the owners, but that's
But it's
nowhere
the
close.
no. Okay.
And we hear Piedmontese. What's some other good ones, Joe?
Piedmonteses.
Piedmontese is a good one.
Oh, yes. I like that.
Yeah, I
well, why
can
don't you
see
guys
that.
introduce yourselves real quick before we get too far into it?
Yeah, so my name is Ben Mole. I do a lot of the sales and marketing for the company, but we wear a lot of many hats around here. So, I mean, we've helped pack boxes for the holidays. We've helped cut meat down in our butcher shop. We sit on the customer service line. We do what's needed. And so it's a lot of fun working for a family company. It lets us do pretty much everything.
Sure.
Yeah, and I'm Joe Finnegan, and to echo Ben's sentiment there, we do a lot of things at Piedmontese, and it's a small, tight-knit, small family-run business, but man, are we mighty when we can put our heads together. So excited to share that Piedmontese message with you guys today, and kind of hopefully grow with you as well.
Are you guys, the reason you guys are both here today is because you're more involved in the marketing than other folks are, or is that the deal?
Yeah, we're about, a quarter of our marketing team.
Okay.
And then we also do our own podcast, the Powered by Piedmontese podcast. But,
Oh, nice. We'll check that out.
Oh,
yeah, no free plugs. It's still kind of growing.
nice.
Stay
No,
here.
that's good.
These guys are good. They already worked it in there.
No free advertisements on the Common Folk podcast.
Plug it. That's fine. No, that's good.
No, it
I didn't
sounds
know
great,
you guys
yeah.
did that.
We'll check it out.
So you two are on it. Anybody else, or do you have guests, or no?
From time to time,
Okay.
we do, yep.
All right.
And what's the theme of that?
Well, we talk about, obviously a lot of how Piedmontese ties back into the beef world. So we've talked about the harvest process. As far as consumers, they don't see behind a certain veil what they get in like larger consumer marketing. Or that's, another big piece is like a lot of, you guys had the upstream farm guys on
That's
here.
right. Yep.
Yeah.
So you get that spectrum of cattle producing or beef producing, cattle raising, and the whole commodity market that's out there, which largely is what everyone thinks about when they think about beef.
Right.
Tyson, Cargill of the world. But that's not how we do it. That's not how a vast majority of smaller beef brands do it either. So there's two totally separate markets out there.
For sure.
A lot of the connotation or negativity that goes on in this industry should be directed towards those large four players.
Right.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, yeah, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, too, from our perspective as a producer's angle, understanding and teaching the why and the how, because so many peoples and consumers go to the store and they look at the fresh meat case and see, I want that ribeye.
Yeah.
But they don't understand the why or the how that product actually got there. So educating and informing people, just like what you guys are doing, is vital, because knowing where your food comes from is becoming more and more paramount, by the day.
Absolutely.
And Joe, you were missing one of the W's there, the what. Like, what are they actually looking at? And you're telling that complete story, because if we backtrack this, let's really get into what actually Piedmontese is. It's an actual type of cattle, correct?
Right, and it's
and hold on. I got my own plug right there. Love you guys, Nebraska Brewing Company.
beautiful. But yeah, the what, just to your point, is we are a branded beef program, which, there are plenty out there, but it's how can they get their message out there, and then how can that branded beef display all the way to the end finished product by your logo being with your meat in that meat case.
Yeah, and you guys are kind of self-sufficient, and you do it every level. I mean, you're straight at when people say from field to table, from farm to fork, you guys really are living that. Because according to what I've read up on you guys, cattle are out grazing out in western Nebraska, north Nebraska. Then they come to Lincoln, to the butcher shop, the whole 9 yards. You guys do it.
Yeah, I think a big part that what separates us from a beef company is that we're vertically integrated with our cattle company. So we raise and produce our own cattle for our own beef company. So, like, we could all start up a beef company tomorrow, for example, and we just buy from a cattleman. We'd go through the money and resources to process it, harvest it, process it, package it, and ship it, and sell it, and market it. So we obviously do that, but obviously we have a big part in raising the cattle. So they're raised to a certain program standard. We need it all natural. We need it grass-fed, grass-finished. We're shooting for this type of weight so we can get this type of consistency every single week of the year.
I was talking to we both were, Morgan and I, someone that's getting into the whiskey business, and they're like reinvigorating this old brand that has been around forever. And we were asking them, like, oh, you guys started distilling and these kinds of things. Like, oh no, we're buying barrels out of Kentucky and we're blending them and we're making it, we're putting our label on it, whatever. And that reminds me of what you were just talking about there. Like, they're branding, they're selling on, they're selling this thing on marketing, but it's not their stuff.
Exactly, yeah. And I mean, you look at a lot of direct-to-consumer, mail order beef companies, and it's much of the same. There's a big one here in Omaha.
Yeah.
But then even like the butcher boxes of the world, they paint this beautiful picture of what looks like rolling hills in Montana. Well, in long story short, their beef's being imported from Uruguay and New Zealand.
Sure.
So you're not even consuming a U.S.-based product.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
And maybe that could be a nice little segue to dive into this, because I do a little reporting on the ag side for News Channel Nebraska as well. And since I grew up on a farm, I just get I get all the ag assignments, So
Yeah.
all right, so
Andy will do it.
I'll do it. So the beef producers, RCAF, they were a big part of a rally. This was a couple of years ago, but I'm curious as to where this battle is right now. But it was the OCM, Organization Competitive Markets, and I interviewed Bill Bullard of RCAF, the CEO. And one of their big complaints to Donald Trump and his administration and everybody else was that beef from Brazil, China, was allowed to be shipped into the United States, go through a processing plant like one of the big four that you talked about there, unpackaged, repackaged, and then it straight up was called a product of the USA. And I also saw, through doing a little research for this, it really affected, like probably more than anyone else, grass-fed beef market. So it affected you guys more than anybody.
Yeah, I mean, they're just trying to pull a fast one over the American consumer. I think most Americans, if they saw a product of Uruguay, they would run for the hills. But all these companies that are, especially 85%, maybe even 90% of all grass-finished beef in this country is not from this country. Largely because it takes time to raise cattle all on grass. So therefore, if it takes longer to raise, it costs more to raise. Therefore, the beef product's going to cost more. So now is the American consumer who wants grain-finished, wants fatty beef, going to pay more for a grass-finished steak? Typically not. So it's cheaper. Like, for consumers want that cheaper one, so they have to go for Australia beef or Uruguayan beef, Irish beef. So for us, that's where our breed kind of makes the segues, because we actually are a great grass-finished beef because we taste like a prime-grade steak without the fat. You don't get the yellow fat that comes with grass-finished beef because we're just leaner, so it's just a tender bite of steak that actually is a steak that you want to buy and are willing to spend more money on.
There's two things there that I want to touch on real quick. First of all, to rewind a little bit, for you guys personally, what's your guys' background? And, have you come up in kind of agriculture or the industry, or how did you get into this?
Yeah, so I'll unpack that one first.
This is Joe.
Yep, Joe, sorry.
All right. No, it's all good.
I've been with the Piedmontese business for about 8 years now. Started just out of college with a marketing degree, but I've had family that's in the agriculture industry. I spent my summers up in hay fields on the rake every summer, but outside of doing more farm work, I never was really involved much with beef production, which is now morphed into more marketing and sales of beef. But it's really cool to see those parallels, especially coming from a predominantly, Black Angus town up in north central Nebraska.
Yeah.
It's cool to see that there's other breeds out there, and especially what the value proposition is of the Piedmontese breed of cattle, being very lean but extremely tender yet. So with Piedmontese, it's fascinating in the fact that you can eat a ribeye steak and then go do a hard training exercise an hour and a half later, when typically you would have just insane meat sweats or grogginess. You can actually, bake your cake and eat it too with Piedmontese.
Interesting.
I like your segue that you do this hour and a half rigorous training after eating.
What do you got, Ben?
Well, it's a tough act to follow. So the family that owns our beef business, Also owns a range of golf courses around the country, as well as one of the largest trade journals for construction equipment, ag equipment, even trucks and trailers and planes. I was with them for over 10 years, traveled the globe on their dime, establishing sales and other networks. And one day they said, hey, in February, we're going to move you over to the beef company.
Oh, okay.
Obviously eating beef, and I do enjoy cooking. So I, frequently talk about good foods or eating Piedmontese. So one day just kind of walked up, sat next to Joe, and then we just kind of went to town. So we really kind of focused on growing the marketing of our beef company. Our website at the time probably did 25 orders a week. And as we get into the holidays, we're doing a few thousand. So it was getting our website up to snuff. It was getting our marketing up to snuff, our advertising, largely which I didn't have a lot of experience in, but, we just immersed ourselves into what we need to do. And learning about stuff in the beef industry is not that hard. There's plenty of information out there, but it's choosing the places that actually give it to you objectively.
Right.
And reading through all the large commodity stuff. So it's been enjoyable. I love working for this place.
That's cool. When you talk about like orders, you guys are shipping direct to consumer. Is that going all over the U.S., all over the world? What's that look like?
So predominantly U.S. Now, I don't want to make it seem like we're just a mail order beef business. 90% of our business is boxed beef, so we're sending out subprimals in boxes to retailers all throughout the country.
Okay.
So when you get an animal, you have to move the whole carcass.
Sure.
When you think about going to, CPBeef or Piedmontese.com, you're not going to buy a denuded inside round as a consumer. You might if you want to, make your own jerky or stir-fry beef, but typically they're coming after grinds and a few steaks, but those retailers move the rest of the animal.
Sure.
Or you as a consumer, again, likely aren't going to buy 2,000 pounds in one swing where a retailer certainly would. But for our website, we're just U.S. only. Shipping frozen perishable items, you got 2 to 3 days to get it to someone's doorstep. So going into Canada, it's possible, but at that point, I don't think they'd pay for that. It'd be $100 a pound, I'd have to guess.
Yeah.
That would be a lot.
Yeah, it would. It made me think about something else. Oh, and so it's all coming out of here in Nebraska. It's all shipping out of here in Nebraska, right?
Yep. So we just built our own 50,000 square foot cold storage facility where we're drop shipping everything all across the country, in addition to loading those semi-truckloads of box beef to go coast to coast on semi-truck trailers.
Interesting. I would venture to guess that probably 90% of the people that are going to listen to this podcast, if not more, have no idea this is going on here.
No, not at all.
None.
For as good as you guys do marketing, you guys really are a drop in the bucket compared to, big established, the 4 big ones, right?
Yeah.
But when you go ahead.
Sorry. What I mean by that is this is, just Nebraska.
Yeah.
We say that like it's just Nebraska, man.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like you think about when I look at the marketing that you guys do and how everything looks, I would think like, oh man, this stuff's shipping out of New York somewhere, or California or something.
Yeah.
This is just Nebraska, dude.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and you guys were talking about marketing, so honestly, I didn't even know this was around for ever. And then recently, I would say probably the past year, seeing tons of billboards, seeing the advertisement. So that's probably kudos to you guys and your team and all this stuff. But I didn't even know it was a thing.
And there is a good reason for that. Prior to, I would even say 2 years ago, again, with the vast majority of our business being in boxed beef, this is going out to California. Our beef's going out to New York, to Florida, to Texas, to areas that want leaner beef. And, 3 years ago, we'd tell you Nebraska's not our target market because everyone here has got an uncle that raises their own cow. I got a half a beef in my freezer. Or they want something that's just ridiculously marbled. They want something super fatty. And when we offer a leaner beef, even with our grain finish program, it's probably choice, I'd bet, but we don't market or grade ourselves because our tenderness comes from the breed and the genetics. So Nebraska wasn't our target. So we didn't spend any dollars here.
Oh, okay.
When we got our butcher shops going, we started obviously doing a little bit more investment into the local area here, and it just kind of took off. During the holidays, Nebraska rules the roost for us for corporate gifting, business gifting, stuff like that, or just even consumers gifting out. So it's I'd say our second top market during the holidays. Throughout the rest of the year, it's probably in our top 7. Most of it is high metro-based places, California, Florida, New York, and Texas. I mean, they dwarf what Nebraska does, but they also have more people.
Yeah. And a little bit, maybe a little bit different, like you said, a little bit different culture. Yeah.
Well, I raised my eyebrow when it was brought to my attention that we're going to get some of your guys' beef, and cook it and try it ourselves. And this time I'm like, man, I'm from a small town up in north central Nebraska. And I remember we had a run-in with grass-fed beef back in the 90s. And the old boy that lived outside of town, he took one bite and threw it away. So, that was my experience. So when I was told, oh, no, it's grass-fed, grass-finished, you're going to like it. I'm like, okay. But no, I tried it. I'm not just saying this. I sign off on it. It's a really good taste. There is a different flavor to it. And maybe in layman's terms, can you kind of break that down for us? Why is it not marbled, not fatty, more tender, and it doesn't taste like grass? It doesn't taste like an old mule deer buck.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It doesn't have that gnarly taste to it.
Yeah, super short answer for you there is the fact that this breed of cattle naturally has an inactive myostatin gene. So all of their food energy is converted into muscle rather than fat. So you and I have an active myostatin gene. So when we eat a donut, our body knows that that's not good for our body, so it stores it as fat.
Okay.
With the Piedmontese having an inactive myostatin gene, everything's super muscled up, and their muscle structure itself is very dense, or they have shorter muscle fibers, and they deposit little to no connective tissue. So that's where the tenderness comes from.
And this is where, I was thinking about this, where you guys are really behind the eight ball in the sense, you guys do phenomenal marketing if you know what you're looking for.
Yeah.
And you actually seek it out. Go to your YouTube channel, right? But for the common Joe that's at the grocery store and he sees your steak next to a beautiful marbled, ribboned one with a bunch of fat in it, you guys got to explain to him why yours tastes just as good, if not better. And I think that's one heck of a hill to climb.
Yeah, and I'll explain the kind of our shift in our business strategies because of that. So even we're not currently in Hy-Vee, or some of the local retailers, is because the guy behind the counter isn't one of our sales reps either. So if we're in the fresh meat case and they look at a leaner beef but seeing a higher price tag, hey, why is this one so much more expensive? That butcher, whether he's 18 years old, 20, he won't know what to say. No, we don't pay him to do that. So obviously we produce what we call point of sale material. So we could have nice branded, colorful things that say taste the Piedmontese difference or experience and explain some of that. But how do you get into the inactive myostatin gene and less connective tissue and shorter muscle fiber? The consumer can't handle that in just a few minute purchase at the store. So we need to take over that story ourselves. So we're investing so much more in our own business as far as direct to consumer, because we can tell that story. They can be on our social media pages. We can reach them with those ads, and we'll sell it rather than the guy behind the counter. So we are making and obviously we make more selling it ourselves than cutting in room for the retailers to make margin. So we're making a pretty big, sizable shift in our consumer marketing so that we, tell the story, sell it better, keep more money, and that's why you're seeing the billboards during the holidays, commercial advertising, and a hefty digital marketing campaign coming up this quarter. So there's a big reason to all that, because it is a hard thing to sell. And the biggest thing, or we can really do for folks, is get them to taste it. Because I can tell you till I'm blue in the face that lean steak that you see there, whether it's grain finished or grass finished, it's going to be tender and it's going to taste like real beef.
I'm living proof of that. So. You guys had a sell job on me, and I had to try it to believe it.
So do you guys, just to kind of get this out of the way, do you guys believe wholeheartedly, I'm trying to figure out the best way to answer this question because obviously you guys work for this company too, that this is definitely the way to go? Or is it something where you're in your own freezer at your own house, you have a mix of this stuff and maybe some Black Angus or whatever, and you're kind of, depending on what you want to eat at the time, you're mixing it up?
So like you mentioned, we're obviously very partial and biased, but this is the only beef that I've eaten in 8 years.
Okay.
And truth be told, we say, and we're big proponents of the agriculture industry as a whole. A lot of the farmers and producers out there that are raising their own beef, they're doing everything the right way. We just take it all the way through that production cycle. But for us, and the attributes and unique nature of the Piedmontese breed of cattle, is it's half the fat, calories, and saturated fat as traditional beef. So we like to call that, more of a daily driver, or more of putting that into your daily diet, which Ben and I eat, meat every single day, because it's nutritionally very dense, more dense than commodity beef, and it just tastes so dang good that you can craft pretty much anything up with it.
Mm-hmm.
To kind of echo that, calling it an everyday beef is I think you can train your palates to want to taste that fat.
Mm-hmm.
So if you start eating Piedmontese for a week, I haven't tried this out myself or studied it, but then you go back to eating a prime grade steak or a Wagyu steak, all I taste is fat. And so I immediately can feel like this richness. And I'm not saying it's bad.
Yeah.
But it's like, that's what fat tastes like. So then you have a lean steak, like, wait, that's what beef tastes like.
Mm-hmm.
And so I've trained my palate, my family's palate. Going out to restaurants, I'll cook a better steak at home than a restaurant could. But even there, like, you taste this fat, and like, that's not what I want anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of spoiled us from what we were told for growing up and what everyone tells you, that you want that riddled marbling in that steak, which I can say is probably true for every other breed of cattle or program. But with Piedmontese, like, I don't want it.
So when you guys were learning about this, and maybe you talk about this today, like, would you compare this to like a bison or like some kind of wild game like an elk or something like that?
As far as like some of the nutritional profile, sure. Just because it has less fat, it's just basically going to be healthier. If you're talking about grain finished or grass finished, like, is it healthier? I don't know too much. You might get some more nutrients out of the grass finish, but really it's just got less fat.
Mm-hmm.
So the common sense here, well, you eat less fat, it's healthier. But so for nutritionally, we do compare to bison, or what the market would attribute to bison goes, but bison is not like a tender steak. You might get one or two cuts off the whole beast that is actually a tender steak.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Where us, it shines pretty much throughout the whole carcass, but because that's the Piedmontese genetics. So, elk, for example, super lean, but, their body's not digesting this grass to produce a great meat quality or steak quality. Everyone loves the what do you call it now? Filet mignon,
Backstraps.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I wish I was more of a hunter, but for the most part, with Piedmontese, like I said, the genetics are the only thing that make this thing work. Another cattle, or even if it was Angus feasting on grass like this, ain't going to produce the same type of beef that the Piedmontese would. So we are certified Piedmontese, so we're pulling DNA samples from all of our calves to ensure that they have this inactive myostatin gene. And that's what we use as a consistency marker to prove that our finished beef quality or beef product is certified Piedmontese, and we know it's going to be tender.
It's interesting. And I asked that question because I haven't had the beef. I'm sure we will here before long, especially after this conversation.
Yeah, I'm interested.
But we have had that game. We have eaten a fair amount of bison, and just in my mind, that's what I think. Like, it's way more dense. It's muscle fiber. But then we have to cook it. Like, we can't cook it as much. We have to keep it kind of rare to keep it tender. It can get tough.
Yep.
But if we do it right, man, it's awesome.
Yeah.
But it's more touchy, like you said, to cook.
And we've had you guys out making deer burger is what my wife calls it. And that's another thing. There's not a lot of fat in there. So a lot of times we'll throw a beef shoulder in there or a pork butt or something like that just to give it a little bit of fat. So it'll give it a much better flavor and it'll stick together. The burger will fall apart because there's no fat content to it.
When you're talking about like grinds of beef, we still shoot for certain types of blends. So our grass finished grind is actually about 80-20. So it's got fat in there. It's got carcass fat in there, all from whole muscles in there. We do produce our best seller on our website is our 96.4 ground beef. We sell an alarming amount of it, but that's super lean. So you're probably typically not making burgers.
Right.
But being a muscly cow and muscly breed, we obviously do very well in the powerlifting community. Mainly thanks to Joe here for setting up some of these connections. But so all these nutritional folks, they want that lean protein source.
Yeah. So
that's why the 96.4 just hauls off our website. But again, back to comparing to bison, most bison that you'd find commercially is grain finished. You get this idea that these are roaming animals and they're feasting on grass for the most of their life, but they're finished in a feed yard just same as cattle. Both part of the bovine family, so they can even be processed at the same plants. But with our Piedmontese, and I don't have no proof of this, but I think especially in the way Nebraska ranchers do it, I'll say Nebraska ranchers do it better than anyone else on the planet. And I really think it's because we actually have seasons here. So where our cattle aren't on pasture feasting on green grass for up to 2 years. I think all that green grass that they're eating is what leads to more of that grassier flavor that you'd even get with like a venison. So the fact that, yes, in the spring or as calves are getting green, but when they're starting to get the feeding process there, I mean, they're getting a lot of mix of nutrients that it's not that vibrant green grass that leads to more yellow fat. So you just get a better steak flavor. Now, obviously, we've perfected that. I mean, our cattle company, once again, knowing the nutrition that needs to go in the feed and how to feed these animals, again, is why we have such a fine beef quality at the end, because we're controlling that whole process.
How long has this company been around?
So we actually just celebrated our 10-year anniversary.
10 years.
We've been
okay.
going direct to consumer since about 2014.
Okay. Gotcha.
The breed's been
Oh, yeah. And then the breed, it has been around for years and
centuries.
years? Okay.
Yep. So the Piedmontese or I suppose the genetics or the bulls first came over into, I believe, Canada. And then the Montana Ranch brand is what we acquired about 12 plus years ago. So they were doing Piedmontese out of Montana. It was an F1 cross program with an Angus. When we took over the program, we focus on the genetics. So obviously we're really working on the seed stock of these bulls, getting the bull development going. So again, working towards what we know is a consistent end beef product. Because we weren't just, a lot of the farmers out there, they're just raising cattle and they sell it off to another beef company. Well, we have to buy it ourselves. So
Right.
we have to know that it's consistent product, especially for the prices that we're charging. So again, that vertical integration is kind of a key component to providing the best beef that we think is possible out there with Piedmontese.
And before I forget, so you work for the Pied family, and they're from the Piedmontese area of Italy. Now, was that a deal on Ellis Island where, like, your name's Pied now? When they came over, when the family came over,
So yeah, a slight correction. So the Pieds are from Iowa, the Pied family.
not Italy,
Not Italy.
Italy.
I mean,
Italy,
it
Iowa?
sounds really good when you say Italy.
So the Piedmontese breed of cattle would have came from Piedmont in northern Italy. So they are a dual purpose animal out there, and so they were for work, for meat, for cheese. But it's really that unique. And our beef, I should fully back it up. If you go to Italy and have Piedmontese beef over there, it ain't going to be twice as good as what ours. I mean, the way they raise cattle over there is not the Nebraska way.
Yeah, it's different.
I'm sure it's good, but I mean, as far as the true taste of how good Piedmontese can be, it really has to come from us.
And I'm sure they've got they're feeding them different things. Like there's going to be different species of grasses and so on and so forth. That's going to affect that, I'd imagine.
Well, too, and just the space to do it. Again, you look
Okay.
at Nebraska. I mean, look at how much feed yards we have, grasslands we have over
Yeah.
there. Italy, old Europe there, they're crammed in there.
Yeah.
So you think about this great, I don't want to say cost of living, but like how these animals live over there, it's tight. Some of them, they're just in some stone quarters there. It's not as nice of a story as going wine tasting through the Italian countryside there. And so, again, Nebraska just does it the right way. Like, no matter what the program is, across the board, no matter the breed, beef is raised better in Nebraska.
and that reminds me of, like, when I was little, and I grew up on a cattle farm, small operation, and I can remember in the springtime when me and Dad and my brothers would kick all the cattle out, from the winter, storing area by the barn out to the pasture, and it'd be just lush, beautiful green grass, and be like, those cows are so spoiled, they don't even know it. But that's what you're saying. I mean, it's just different. It's different when you got the ground and the grasslands to work with.
And that's really the cool part of this breed of cattle as well, because the Piedmont region in northwest Italy is actually known for being very ripe grape growing country. So they produce some of the world's best, Italian wines. So to have the cattle there as well, I don't know if they use the cows for fertilizer and things like that, but it is very hilly, mountainous terrain, and so even just being in western Nebraska where it's nice and flat, or having those rolling sand hills, it's a lot easier on them going to and from in the pastures.
Yep. No, that's some of the best grazing ground in the world. I'll get up on my Nebraska soapbox right now. The sand hills with that type of natural switchgrass, the different types of grasses that are out there. I mean, and it was made for bison. And now it's just kind of evolved into, well, the bison are, its own thing now, but it's for cattle now.
We talk about that quite a bit, when you think about the environmental impact that cattle theoretically has on the industry, even though I'll totally vouch that I think it's actually healthy for it. But, like, what else would we do with that land out there?
No, that's what that land, that's what I was saying. That's what that land was made for. That's what it evolved hand in hand with the animals, the bison.
And I don't want to say joking, but, like, you look at California and how they... I mean, probably to have a cattle program out there, or pork, or whatever the case may be, California's going to tell you no. Screw you guys. We don't want it in this state, right?
Cow farts are bad.
Yep. So
Stop blaming the cows.
and look how big California is, but look how much of it burns all the time. They have no natural regenerative process to feast on the ground, return some soil and nutrients, and keep some of that overgrowth down. If they outlawed farming or cattle raising in Nebraska, we'd be burning down every year, just like some of those other states. Like I said, the cattle is what's good for Nebraska, and Nebraska is good for this cattle.
Yeah, and it goes hand in hand with everything else that we do with row crops. I mean, I know you guys are talking about grain fed animals, or grass fed animals, but the grain fed animals, I mean, we grow all this corn and all these soybeans, and these animals, we rely on these animals to hit those fields after harvest, to clean them up, to suck up those nutrients, to lay down fertilizer, to keep the ecosystem going on and on every year, and that's what happens around here.
And that's a misconception too, is that farmers don't care about the land, they don't care about conservation. Yeah, right. They care more about their property, their grounds, all of it, the traditions, all of it, than just some person strolling into a grocery store, buying the steak here, there, or whatever.
You're starting to see more what's called regenerative agriculture show up in claims or brands. So if you're shopping for beef and you see regeneratively raised, it's becoming a buzzword, but like, heck, we've been regeneratively raising and farming and since Kingdom Come.
It's just the new word they're saying?
It's the new word, but then consumers are like, oh, that sounds nice.
So
much
pretty.
nicer than what that guy down the street's doing. But like, we've all been, any responsible rancher and farmer, I'd say in the country for the most part, is doing that because they're stewards of their own land and of their own animals.
And not only that, it pays. Like, it makes sense. You get the fertilizer from the cattle for your grain for the next season. Like, that's more or less free fertilizer, or it's fertilizer that you're getting paid for, basically. You know what I mean? And you could add that to any step along the way. So for people that think that, like, oh my gosh, like you said, this is so nice or whatever, well, yeah, it's nice, but the farmer's doing what they should be doing, and it makes monetary sense. It makes business sense.
Fiscally responsible.
Yeah.
But it'd be like you taking your corner beans to the elevator and say, hey, this was regeneratively raised. I'm going to like another $1 more per bushel.
Yeah.
They tell you, like, screw off, man. That's not how that works.
Get out of here.
But, we, as a branded program, we do strive for certain claims that we want on a label. Adding claims to a label can help us command what price we want to sell it for. So starting actually of this month, our grass-finished beef is actually now non-GMO, which is pretty much unheard of in scale in this part of the country. But, we want that claim on that label so we can get this type of price. So I don't blame the producers out there that want to put regeneratively sourced or raised on there, because it's going to help them get a little bit more price per pound or per package that they have on there. So I get the claim-based advertising, but to me it's like something else, like what are your farmers doing that no one else is doing? Because now you're just capitalizing on just what farmers have been doing for centuries.
That's the point that I was thinking exactly when you were saying that. Like, if you make a claim, but it's something that everyone else is doing anyway, like, you're just playing games.
Yeah, or has been doing. You're just doing a marketing ploy.
Right, for sure. I wanted to ask you guys, because we've talked a lot about the grass, 100% grass-fed, and you guys do sell grain-finished beef. So what's the story behind that and those two, and why you have that and where it comes in and so on and so forth?
So we've always been in, obviously, the raising and husbandry aspect, and we've always finished on grains up until about the last, I don't know, probably 12 months, 18 months.
Oh, okay. So it's relatively new.
And that was a testament to the breed of cattle, because we've kind of done some R&D on our end, and we've noticed that there's virtually no difference in taste and performance when these cattle are finished on grain. A lot of that is, again, due to the genetics of the breed of cattle and the fact that they don't deposit lots of connective tissue or lots of surface fat. So there's not really an opportunity for that yellow fat to become present in these steaks. Okay. A lot of our grass-fed steaks still have the white fat because they deposit so little of the fat. So it virtually tastes the same as grain-finished, which is a remarkable attribute to this breed of cattle.
And so then is the decision monetarily based because it costs less to grass raise them than grain finish them?
To me, it's not so much the costing, because it does actually cost more, because it's just going to take longer for this cattle to get up to weight.
Okay.
Yeah.
But what we're seeing, because we were a grain finished program, but ungraded, right? Because going through the plant, a USDA inspector would give us that choice rating. But like, if you eat our steaks, it tastes like prime. Now, we actually have shear force testing data to actually back up our claim that we're just as tender as prime. but like to the consumer, like it'd be a disservice to our breed of cattle putting a grade on it. So now we're taking a grain finished product out to retailers throughout the country without a grade. Then all of a sudden it's also leaner, right? So we kind of lose the appeal to the consumer because of the breed. So we can't tell all the story in these retail stores. They're not in there long enough to look at it. So when we tested the grass finished, it was to actually create, like we were almost selling ourselves as a grass finished product, even though we're grain. So if a retailer wants grass finished, like, well, just buy our grain finish. It's leaner. That's what the consumer wants anyway. But obviously that didn't take us that far enough, or else we'd still be largely doing grain finished. So to do grass finish was to exist in a marketplace that we knew was growing with a product that just far succeeded anything else.
Yeah.
So it was more, we weren't fitting in where we needed to in the grain finished market because we didn't have the fat. So now with grass finished, people aren't necessarily looking for fat. You do start seeing some grass finished companies claiming to be prime grade, which to me, I'd run far away from that, because if it's that riddled with fat that it took a prime grade, that thing is going to taste like you're eating grass. So with us, it's a marketplace that fit our breed, fit our performance. And now we're running up to retailers like, we had grass finishing here before. It didn't sell well. It's like, well, yeah, you didn't have Piedmontese in there. And so give us that chance to let you taste it. And then we'll win over you and your customers.
It's almost like a completely different way of going about understanding your beef, because like you said, we've all been taught all these years all these grades, and when it comes down to it, I think the grade has to do with the amount of marbling, right? And you guys are saying like, no, with our breed, almost the less marbling the better. And so it's almost like it's like backwards. It's totally different
so
for people to
opposite.
understand.
It's the genetics
Yes.
of this breed out of Italy.
Yeah.
That's really what it boils down to. And Joe, could you kind of run us down exactly what all you have? Talking about vertical integration, right? You touch it here, there, and everywhere else, and straight to consumer. What all do you got going on there in Lincoln? I kind of consider that eastern Lincoln, Nebraska. You got a restaurant, you got a marketplace, you got the slaughterhouse, right? I mean, it's all right there.
Yep. So the only thing we're not doing in our whole system is the actual harvesting of the animals.
Okay.
But we bring everything in from the fabrication floor in box beef subprimal form, and then it's further processed into the steaks that you're getting delivered right to your front door at our facility on 84th and Havelock. Within that same facility, we're also doing our own ground beef production. So we have our own ground beef production line where we do 5-pound pillow packs, 10-pound pillow packs, hamburger patties, and then 1-pound bricks that also go direct to consumer in addition to our retail partners throughout the country. And then to your point, what you touched on there is we have a retail shop that's open to the public every day from 8 to 8. And soon to be 2 more coming online as well, one in Western Omaha and one in South Lincoln. And then we have a restaurant on our facility as well that's it's called Casa Bovina, and it's a Northern Italian fine dining restaurant that showcases really an upscale presentation of the Piedmontese beef as center of the plate focus.
Wow, that's really cool.
Date night, you two?
I know. I was just thinking we definitely need to check that place out.
And I totally would, because, I mean, it's experience-based.
Yeah.
You're not going to walk up there and walk out in 45 minutes. So you are kind of committing yourself to 2 hours because you're wanting our chefs to take you through a true experience. And it's unique. Like everyone probably in Nebraska when you first got that going, like, what are they doing out there? And you're likely going to spend $90 a person, $100 a person if you're doing it right. Get the tasting menu.
Right. Okay.
But like no one thought I was going to succeed, but like we're filling up left and right. I mean, if you want to get like eat between 6 and 7:30, like you're probably going to book a month out, unless you're willing to eat, at 8 o'clock. Which we found out Lincoln is no one's not night owl at 84th and Havelock out there.
Yeah.
And Andy, one more thing that shame on me, forgot to mention is we have a smokehouse coming online here within the next 8 weeks or so that we're actually going to be producing all of our own lines of beef sausages as well as salumi and charcuterie products as well.
Okay.
I'm glad you brought that up. That made me think about something else because just myself and my buddies and all of us around here, we do a lot of barbecue, a lot of smoking, which that's not what you were talking about there necessarily, but where we'll do briskets and ribs and tri-tips and, whatever the case may be, even chuck roasts, and it's always seemed like when we do that, we can't do it with like wild game because it doesn't have enough fat. The smoking process doesn't work.
Right.
You got to mix something in. You can't really do it with bison. We've tried. We're doing some experiments with them,
You're
but
not wrapping enough bacon around it.
that's true. Yeah, a little bacon in there.
Yeah.
But is that something that you guys have tried or have had chefs try, and how has it worked?
Yeah, so we have folks that barbecue our meat everywhere. It is, along with barbecue, even cooking our steaks, they do cook differently because it's almost kind of like preparing it as if you're cooking wild game because it's got more meat to it. It's going to dry out if you cook it to that 135, which is the traditional medium rare. But, there's folks out there, too, that get creative when they smoke for low and slow long periods of time. The biggest kind of revolution right now is everybody wrapping with beef tallow. To just moisturize that meat as you're actively dehydrating it through the cook process or smoke process. So just wrapping it with beef tallow seems to do wonders for our beef, whether it be a brisket or bone-in chuck short ribs, what have you. Or Ben likes to make the poor man burn ends with the chuck roast. So.
Do you do that with the Piedmontese beef? Does that work?
Well, again, that's all I really do eat.
Yeah.
But I think, especially with the chuck roast, I end up braising it at some point, so getting some liquid in the pan, even if I'm doing it, not burn ends, but just the whole chuck roast. But we've done briskets. I mean, we'll do briskets. We have a Friday lunch at our facility out there, and we'll serve 250 people out there with our briskets. So, I mean, yes, it's leaner, but, like, when you're cooking something for 12-plus hours, like – I mean, it's still going to be tender. And there's still fat in this animal. I mean, we all need fat to live. But our meats, I mean, can still rank up there with – because, again, the genetics keep that meat quality so good. No matter what you're smoking, it's still going to turn out really good. So, but with our smokehouse, I love it because we're taking byproducts. So, and what I mean by that, like, if we're trimming up our New York strips for the website, or ribeyes, sirloins, that byproduct has to go somewhere. We could sell it off to some company to make pepperonis or meatballs. We traditionally were making our own hot dogs out of it. That's made with all steak trim, pretty much steak dogs. We can't call them steak dogs because of the USDA and their finicky labeling laws. But so we're taking a lot of our trim from our own processing facility and basically going to make our own line of gourmet beef sausages. And so we're going to make beef bacon out of there. We can make our own hot dogs now. We're going to do some cured meats, more Italian style. And we will even have some pork branded cured meats going on in there as well. So it's a testament, again, to the whole animal that, we're not just after the nice steaks that everybody wants. We can find good homes for all the byproducts that come off the whole carcass. When you're getting carcass trim that comes back that traditionally would go into grind, we can take that and form and make our own meatballs out of it.
I saw your hot dogs, and one of your fitness guys from out east was talking about them. What was his name? He's a gamer too, I think. I mean, big arms. I mean, arms the size of
Mike Dolce, probably. Yeah.
There you go. He's like, I even eat the hot dogs, bro. Like you don't see fitness guys talk about eating hot dogs.
No, not really.
It made me curious. I'm like, all right, I'm glad you brought that up because I wanted to ask you about those.
Well, and it's really interesting, too, from that fitness world. I mean, if you look at our grass-fed beef, it's naturally leaner, obviously, is the breed. But, like, for an 8-ounce sirloin, grass-fed, grass-finished, it's per 8-ounce steak. It's 240 calories, 52 grams of protein, and 0.8 grams of fat per steak. So at that point, you're leaner than chicken. You're leaner than salmon, but you're getting literally pull-apart tender beef.
See, like, that doesn't even make sense when you hear that, does it? When you think of beef, you don't... you don't think of it like that,
and just the sirloin, you think of flavor, not necessarily tenderness. But here you have just unmatched flavor. But like I said, you don't even you need a butter knife to cut through the steak. It's that tender, or you can straight up cut it into strips and then pull it apart.
So you guys have talked about price a few times. So is it a lot higher in price compared to, is it even hard to compare?
Yeah, no, that's a fair question. And we get, especially in our social media ads, we get ripped all the time for,
oh, do you?
You guys are priced, way out of the market. But compared to what? Compared to prime grade beef, that's kind of where our pricing kind of aligns with. But, with these social media keyboard warriors attacking us about our price, well, what are you comparing us to? The Tyson brand, the JBS brand? Nothing wrong with that beef, but you're talking Tyson. One of their plants could go through 5,000 animals a day. We're not obviously anywhere near that, but of 5,000 animals, that inconsistency is a straight-on roller coaster. But you pay for that inconsistency, I suppose, because it's volume. They're putting volume out there to have beef exist, more of a commodity or market pricing. There's nothing wrong with that. I do believe it needs to exist in this country, in this world, so people have access to eating beef. from its nutritional component as well as just having a nice treat yourself type of moment. But
We've talked about that. And sorry to interrupt you real quick,
Yeah.
but we've talked about that a number of times on this podcast where like there's these kind of specialty things and this big machine needs to exist for those kinds of reasons.
For the food chain.
Yeah, we've talked about it
Yes.
with grains. We've talked about it with a lot of different things. It does need to be there.
Yep. And, we get compared to pork or chicken, all those types of things. But, the farmers out there, chickens, especially in a more commodity sense, it's born and like you can plant that or plan that harvest date 6 weeks. Pigs, let's call it 6 months. It's going to take an animal. I mean, you get the cow pregnant, the gestation period taking 9 months. Got to get the calves and then the feeding period. I mean, you're probably talking at least 2 years of development for one animal. And all the costs that go into it, the feeding, the caring, the husbandry, I mean, even the trucking, then you process it. You have to pay to harvest it, pay to package it, pay to ship it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, beef shouldn't be cheap. It's always been a premium product. So when we get your beef's too expensive, I'm like, well, you probably don't know the first thing about producing or selling beef, but how can we clap back at someone like that?
Yeah, no, and it doesn't matter what it is, boots, shoes, T-shirts. I'm always amazed at when the first reaction people will give you is, well, that costs too much. Like, what are you basing that on? Well, how do you know what it takes to make a T-shirt, to any of it? And this, you guys have done a really nice job of laying it all out there. And you also made me think of a little point there where it used to be one of the reasons you could justify beef costing so much or being that premium product because they eat corn, right? And it takes all that just to grow the corn and then harvest it and then get it there. Here, you're almost supplanting that with grass. And if you really think about that, the grass is could be considered a more natural commodity that they're consuming on a daily basis. I mean, because you're preserving the sandhills, it's not, I don't want to say just a row crop, but it's something different, but it could be viewed the same.
Yeah, and we're actually growing our own foliages and grasses as well. So we're about 95 to 97%. Well, now with the GMO, we'll have full sustainability and we'll be able to be self-sustained with our own feed within the program. But
There we go.
I want to go back just a little bit because that really grinds my gears too when people say it's just so expensive. They say our beef is too expensive, but then you ask them what they've had, for lunch or dinner in the last 2 weeks, and they go through the McDonald's drive-through and get a Big Mac twice in that span, and it's like, but you have no problem spending $10 on a terrible hamburger. And when you look at eating steaks and grilling out, it's almost kind of ceremonious in a way. A hamburger on the grill is one thing, but when you have steaks on the grill, you're kind of thinking like, oh, I'm going to have some people over, or we're going to make a really nice meal. So it's just all about the balance and making choices. And if you can afford to fill your car with premium gas every time, you would do it, right? Because it runs better.
Yeah.
Just like eating a higher quality beef, your body's going to react better and run better.
That's a fantastic point. And I was talking to my partner, Brandon, about this, that I do a lot of sports broadcasting with. When I had your guys's, your 1 pound bricks, you called them, hamburger, and I wanted to do it right. And since it was premium, I bought the Hawaiian buns, the real deal. I bought a brand new honey mustard from Sweet Baby Ray's. Didn't even know that stuff existed. But, just like if I have a really nice Corvette, I'm going to buy the premium gas. So it's almost a deal where you level up and you love it. You know what I mean? Like if you just go cheap and then cheap and then cheap, you're kind of selling yourself short of the experience, the taste, everything.
I think some of us become spoiled around here too. I would say that's the case with our household because we have so much access to beef and pork and chicken and these meats.
It's a good life, brother.
Yeah, I mean it's here. It's not because we're rich. It's because
right.
we're
Yeah,
in the heartland. This is where it is. You know what I mean? So, I mean, we'll eat there. We could have weeks where we'll eat steak 4 nights a week. You know?
And sometimes the kids are like, "Really, steak again?"
Yeah,
I
just
mean,
to make
that
room in
just
your
sounds
freezer.
so bougie.
Yeah.
Like, really?
Yeah.
You got a problem with steak
Yeah. So
4 nights a week?
right. So my point
But-
is that I think a lot of folks around here kind of think like that as opposed to what you're thinking, and that kind of reminds me when you're saying that, like, yeah, this nice stuff like this is a ceremonial thing. This is something to not take lightly. It's special.
Well, and we're also selling a brand that goes with it, and if you're, buying just from a local farmer, they're more, I mean, not the quality's any different, but like they're not trying to protect their brand out there and command a premium value across the country. So, I mean, like we have to be proud of our pricing, and we actually have to do it that makes it sustainable too. You know, it doesn't make sense just to sit there and undercut our beef and then let's lay off half of our production floor. Let's cut Ben and Joe out of the business. I hope that doesn't happen, but you know, we still have to run and operate a business at the end of the day. We're not just harvesting 2 animals a month and finding homes for it or doing herd share or shares with local consumers. 52 weeks, we got retailers that we need to supply a consistent product to every single week. So it's a challenge to do so that at a price point that people will continue to pay for. And again, it ties it back down to the leanness and performance. So we have our work cut out for us because of we're going against everything everyone's trained. And we're working our tails off to sit there and spend that money to tell the story in the right way. And we're still not going to win everybody. But if we can just get people to taste it, I think that is where we'll win. I mean, 99 times out of 100. You know, we do demos at stores quite a bit. You know, we're looking to expand even our ambassador teams, just a team that goes out and samples at all these retailers, because we get consumers to taste it. And they usually at our trade shows, they stop. What did you season that with? And you just look at them dead in the face with a smile like salt. You know, and they don't understand. One, they probably don't know how to cook steaks that well. But when you cook it right and you season it right, and then you get a premium beef quality, like, it is transcendent in a way that these people are baffled. They're like, I don't even like steak, but that might change what I like in beef, or they like it well done because they've been told it's gross for you. You know, like that was the first time I had a medium rare steak in probably years. Like that might have changed me. Like, well, again, that's the Piedmontese difference of why you liked it so much.
And Ben, I've been telling these guys, I'm like the best ambassador I know. Like, I really am.
If you're looking for somebody.
I'm just throwing it out there.
All right, so Andy wants a side gig.
And we actually had to, or is kind of forced to, but we used to be the healthier beef option was our tagline. We've since switched that to real Nebraska beef, because we'd go to these trade shows on the coast and they would say the healthier beef option. So what is it? Is it tofu? Is it vegetarian? Or we would have people try it and look at us and go, what is this? And we say, oh, it's beef. And they say, well, I've been a vegetarian for 23 years. At least it was good.
Yeah.
You're like, oops.
I can see where that
They thought they were eating.
But in all fairness, that was kind of before all the fake meat craze out there.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, I would always say it's the healthier beef choice, as opposed to option. So that was before my time, so I can't take credit for that old tagline. But it is just kind of amazing where people go, especially these trade shows. We have to go to a lot of them. Like, we are the coolest kids in the party. If there's a trade show hotel, people will be clapping for us when they see us. Like, are you guys going to be there tomorrow? The last show we were in, we got a standing ovation as we were a little bit late. We might have stayed out.
Late.
Fashionably late. Look at these guys.
And there was 6 booths that basically gave us a round of applause as we walked into the trade show, because they're feasting on our steak the whole day long. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, again, you have steak smells that just fill up the whole arena. It's fun to be the cool kid. But when you do it with such a nice product, when so many other things at these shows are fake, whether it's fake meat or artificial stuff, or, not to wreck like the keto side, but that's not real food anywhere. So we're promoting something that is real, as premium as it gets, and as simple as it gets. So just a little bit of salt, maybe a little bit of pepper in there. Like, people that's what real food's supposed to taste like. And it's really cool to represent that all throughout the country.
Yeah, it's a great story. What's next on the horizon for the company? What do you guys got going on?
Well, outside of a potential downtown Lincoln restaurant, news to come out with that. It's pretty exciting to watch our brand grow just in Lincoln. But we've really started to, working with some of our branded partners or producers, is to expand our protein line, where I don't want to be a private or white label out there and call something Great Plains Beef or Certified Piedmontese brand. So it's working with other producers in the country to acquire like their pork or their seafood. Like, they're doing things the right way. They have the great story. We're just adding it to our website. Because obviously you guys might eat steak four nights a week. I eat beef quite a bit, but there's a lot of families that want more beef.
Right.
And so when they hit our website, we want them to be able to actually get more stuff than what they want, or just beef. So we started up this Good Life Brands, where we'll eventually kind of have its own website, but we'll be obviously focusing on selling Certified Piedmontese, but looping in some of our partners that we worked with for a long time. Smart Chicken, if you guys are familiar with that chicken company, we used to own that 4+ years ago. So we've always had a close relationship with them, but working with a sustainably sourced seafood company. lobster company. We're working with an Iowa producer for a lot of pork that also supplies Whole Foods. So we're trying to really pick out producers that they have the story. So we'll just buy product from them and just add it to our offering, so a consumer can get some beef, chicken. And unfortunately, I'm not a seafood person, but there's a lot of people that love it. So
Yeah.
I love
We do
it.
a
I think
lot
it's
of
great.
seafood.
Surf and
Yeah.
turf is the best.
Yeah.
So I'll cook it for a photo, but as far as eating it, it's just not for me.
Yeah.
But so this Good Life in our protein collection is really just to acquire more customers. So even if they come to our site for Wickster Seafood, for example, and they stumble across certified Piedmontese, that's also an extra way to get CP into that customer's cart. So we can use those other proteins to help push our own brand. So we'll obviously have to invest a lot in that as well. But those are easier stories to tell. And then once we got them and we slip CP in there, maybe we slip them a discount code for a free New York strip.
There we go.
And then they have that certified Piedmontese, and that's where that conversion happens, I suppose, to get them to believing what we have to sell.
You really do have to try it to believe it. I mean, I can attest to that.
Yeah, that's what it sounds like. What, as far as like the scale that you guys are working at, like how many head do you have right now? Is there a number for that?
So that number can kind of change all over the place, but we are the only Piedmontese producer in North America that can supply a 52-week supply of this beef.
Okay.
A lot of the other producers that do have Piedmontese, they might be harvesting 10 head a week, 10 head a month, 100 head a week, etc. But we're the only ones that can absolutely 100% of the time supply the country with 52-week supply of that, both business to business to retail as well as direct to consumer.
And that's obviously to your current customer base, which I'm sure you guys want to grow. So you'll continue to grow your producers.
Correct. Yep. And ideally, the perfect storm would be box in, box out every single week. We still have growth within our current herd numbers to achieve that. So we do have, obviously everybody wants their rib strips and fillets, Pismo tenderloins. But what do we do with, the secondary cuts, your thin meats, your flat meats, things like that? So finding homes for those every week is going to be what's currently a challenge of ours.
Yeah.
But we're seeing success and momentum here with some players that will allow us to achieve that box in, box out, basically turning our inventory weekly. And then at that point, we're just taking pre-booked orders. So if you want to carry our products in your store, simply you just need to give us a forward order so we can get it on the books for you.
Awesome. And you mentioned it earlier, but what's the easiest way people can find you? Is there a website, or social media? Where do they need to go?
Well, rather than having people try and spell Piedmontese, cpbeef.com is probably the easiest way to hit us, or just Google it. We're going to show up on a lot of those searches. But yeah, we get asked that question a lot, especially from folks in the Midwest. And while there are some retailers here and there throughout the country, without actually knowing their zip code, our website, we're going to ship it right to your door, and it's going to be the best of the best. We really nailed the way we do it. It's going to come in an eco-friendly cooler to where you're not having to sit there and try and figure out what to do with all that styrofoam. But we do have some retailers here locally. Obviously in West Omaha next year, we'll have our own butcher shop. So we'll be able to service some local stores or restaurants more easily with that store. Russ's Market in Lincoln, Nebraska also does carry our product. They have a store in Hastings, I think Kearney as well, Beatrice. But our website, to get the cuts you want.
Yeah.
Because again, you're going to go to some retailer that might just want these 2 cuts.
Right.
Where our website, we have, 50.
No, we're big in Brussels, big contingency in Australia. We're worldwide. You're gonna feel the common folk bump after this. So.
We're gonna send some of this Piedmontese back home.
That's right.
Yeah, and they do have. Did you say Australia or Austria? I might have missed
Both.
So with Australia, there are some Piedmontese producers down there. They're not part of our program, but I think in New South Wales they have a small contingent of Piedmontese cattle down there. Is it Nebraska certified Piedmontese?
No.
Morgan got that.
Again, it's just, I think it's too warm. I think the cattle enjoy the cooler climates that we offer here in Nebraska. But yeah, the best way, and our brand's starting to reach internationally as well. So it hurts our soul to tell them, I'm sorry, we can't really help you out. But yeah, for the most part, as long as you got a U.S. address, we'll get a box right to your door.
Sweet.
Awesome.
Do you have anybody in Italy that's like mad at you for what you're doing?
Well, if anything, I think it helps kind of promote Italy, right? We can't sell back into Italy. They're very protective of their own producers and product over there. But again, I think the quality difference is quite a bit different.
Yeah.
But yeah, so Italy, we're kind of not allowed to do it. We did some export into Europe for a while there, but again, the price point became an issue again because you think about U.S. beef. You're thinking, richly marbled and fatty. All of a sudden, here comes this lean. So I have to pay what for that?
Yeah.
And then there's no storytelling.
It's not
It's
what
just
they're used
meat
to.
over there.
Yeah.
So again, it's just we have to focus on the U.S. And focus on our story, telling it ourselves. Like I said, it's we enjoy the challenge.
Yeah.
And like I said, the more people taste it and realize there's more out there, it's pretty exciting.
Yeah, for sure. Do you have some?
What do you think, Ben? Should we tease a farm focused discount for all the listeners out there?
Oh, that sounds cool. I like that.
Yeah, let's do a farm focused 25, and you'll get 25% off your Piedmontese beef order.
Nice.
Shipped right to your front door.
Nice.
Okay.
Sweet.
All right.
So right here, you heard it right here on the
I
Common
like
Folk
that.
podcast.
I like that. Well, does that deserve a little something from?
It does. It does.
Okay, let's
yeah.
do this.
Let me write this down though, so I don't forget about it. So
Don't let me forget.
I'm going to use the code.
You might see an order from Ben.
All
Joel.
orders over 150 ship for free too.
Nice.
Oh, okay,
So
good.
if you're in Nebraska, or ground shipping, it's like $15.
Yeah.
So it's not too expensive. We do have to put dry ice and package it.
Sure.
It's not cheap
Yeah.
to do it for
Yeah.
free, but
Yeah.
150 and over, fill that freezer up. Enjoy it all throughout the holidays.
Ooh, sweet.
I love the marketing piece and what you guys are doing with it, and like even something as simple as what you said, the website CP Beef. Like that's so smart to me because, like you said, it's hard to spell and all these kinds of things. But you think, let's make this easy for people.
I can barely read, so trying to spell something like Piedmontese.
That's the truth.
Yeah.
How did we get him on here, Ben?
I thought he was your buddy.
That is a story we'll have to go down.
Yeah.
How do I end up here?
Yeah.
Oh.
Well, good stuff, guys. Man, I really appreciate you coming. It's super interesting. For myself personally, I've seen the name and seen the signs for the last few years now.
Yes.
And I really didn't know what was going on. I thought it was probably just a restaurant somewhere or something. And I've kind of heard all these other little things here and there about it. And then Andy, having worked with you guys with NCN, and I was just like, man, this is super interesting stuff. And now hearing what you guys are saying, it's even more interesting than I even imagined.
When we talked on an earlier pod with Doug, and he talked about beef production, he brought you guys up and goes, what those guys are doing with Piedmontese. And
He did, that's right, yeah.
What are you talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, you get us in a room with a bunch of cattlemen, they're just as much interested, even though they understand raising cattle and producing beef. When you talk about Piedmontese and how we're doing it in Nebraska, then you throw in that grass-finished wrinkling in there. I can tell you, even they're all just glued. Just like, how's this being done? So it's fun to even talk to those guys that are part of this industry.
It's cool to hear that too, because my suspicion would be that a lot of guys would be like, "Oh, get that crap out of here! You're not doing. This is the way we do it." So it's cool to hear that people are interested and want to learn and maybe apply some of the techniques or whatever to make their operation even better.
Yeah, and I don't want to go too far down, more stories. I could be talking all day, but we've acquired a lot of farmlands in Nebraska so we can help raise all the grasses we need to finish all our animals. So we're buying prime farm ground, like in York and Seward County, all throughout Nebraska, even parts of the Midwest. But we're taking this farm ground that's doing corn and soybeans, great yields, and turning it into grassland. So if you can imagine being the neighbor, I'm like, what the hell are those guys doing? And they're raising grass-finished beef in Nebraska.
Yeah.
Like, it's a conversation
I
starter.
guarantee
that
Yeah.
goes back
Yeah.
into the sustainable stuff, but yeah, okay.
Yeah. Right?
Yeah, I guarantee it. Cool. Well, one thing we like to do is share a couple things with folks. You guys kind of see this cool table we're sitting around. So a buddy of mine made this table. Excuse me. And right here in the middle of the table, we've got this little hidden compartment. So I'm going to show you guys what's going on here real quick.
Boom.
Little speakeasy.
I've been staring at this for like over an hour and I had no idea.
You had no idea.
That's the idea. So Andy mentioned Doug earlier. You want to talk about him a little bit?
Oh, yeah. So Doug's a distiller out of West Point there. Cooper's Chase bourbon and vodka is what he does, and he does it all right behind his house there in his shop. It's just phenomenal. So once again, it's a Nebraska brand, made in Nebraska, the whole 9 yards. The grains that he uses in his distillery are taken right out of the local elevator there. So pretty awesome. I mean, you're looking at a cornfield that's just right outside of town, goes to the local elevator, and that's what he uses in his distillery to make this bourbon and this vodka.
Yeah,
pretty cool
and
deal.
so we've had Doug on the podcast. He's just a friend
Yeah.
of the podcast. He doesn't pay us to talk about this stuff. We just think it's awesome, and we like to have a drink with everybody. So have guys in. You guys are familiar with the Handle Bend brand. You had mentioned earlier you guys have done some stuff with them, I think.
Yeah, I went to college 1 year back in Midland with one of the owners there.
Nice.
So I consider him a good friend, even though he was a beast to deal with in the dorms. But
Yeah.
good bunch of guys,
Oh,
absolutely.
that could be a good story.
Is there a reason why he got into making drinkware?
I haven't really heard the whole story, but if you really knew him, or I only know Step and his wife Melanie, but like if you know them as a people, like this does fit them perfectly.
Yeah, yeah.
And especially how prideful they were of O'Neill and their home community.
For sure.
Makes total sense.
Yep. Super cool brand. So we've been working with them from the start. They made some cups for us. They give us some gift packs, these types of things. So we like to drink out of these when we share a drink with folks. So you guys down for a little vodka or bourbon?
When in Rome, right?
Yeah, there you go. All right. So take your pick. You want anything, Morgan?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
I'm going to do the bourbon.
You sure about that?
I'm good.
We're bourbon fellas too.
You're bourbon. Everyone's doing bourbon.
Yeah. That price be about right. I did the vodka last time. I normally drink the bourbon. I'm not a big vodka guy. And I was very pleasantly surprised by how
It's
how
good
well
vodka.
it tasted.
It's
Yeah.
good vodka. Smooth.
Yeah, I dug it.
Oh, you dug it? Doug made that?
That's so funny. Hey, we're gonna have to hit Doug up and get a little bit more of
I
this stuff
see
too,
that.
huh?
Yeah.
It's coming. Bottle's getting a little low.
It lasts about 15 pods.
Yeah, right.
Is it?
Average bottle.
So, cheers to you guys. Appreciate you guys coming to town. I know it takes a good amount of your day to come down here, but super
Yeah,
interesting.
thank you.
I'm very excited to share this with folks. I would say that 100% my life I've always been grain-fed beef guy. That's what you would expect, I'm sure. You know, you come down here, this is what we do in Nebraska, and I am extremely curious and excited to try it. The story, everything makes sense. So we'll see what it's like, huh?
Yeah, we don't want it. I mean, you can still buy the grain finish. We don't have to be in every day, but like it's cool to enjoy different beefs out there. I mean, as far as experience or your culinary towns grow, but like also to support other types of Nebraska farmers and ranchers out there. I just think it's cool to have an option out there that can be healthier, but really just a totally different steak or meat experience.
Absolutely. Yep.
Yes.
So let's toast to your
Agree.
guys' your new tagline, not the old one that confused people in California. What's the new one?
Real Nebraska beef.
Let's do this to
Real
real
Nebraska
All right,
beef.
let's have a
Cheers.
drink here, huh? See what you think. Oops.
You know, that's pretty smooth for a shot.
It is.
I'm
For
usually a
bourbon.
mixer at home.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, that's an easy drink.
But we don't want to forget people to hit us up during the holidays. We'll ship your friends and family or coworkers all around the country. We got some great holiday gift box items on our site. And your best part is if you call in, you'll probably get me or Joe on the line anyway. So
Ooh, you get to
handled
talk
this-
to 'em.
There we
All
go.
right.
In the flesh. So yeah, we'll help anybody. And like I said, holidays are a great time to send real Nebraska beef out. Better than another Nebraska beef company here in the States.
Love it.
We'll leave them unmentioned. Huh?
Yes.
Yeah, no, it's perfect time for sure. So,
Well,
What
thanks,
else?
guys.
Yeah,
Anything
thanks.
else?
Oh, we got it.
you
I
guys
think
got
we got
anything
it,
else?
right?
All right. Well, I'm going to hit this music and close this out.
Let's
All
do
right.
it.
All right.
Peace.
Thanks, guys.
Later.